Chapter 4. Italy and Austria. Matteo gave a sigh of accomplishment after gathering his luggage. His outfit for the journey consisted of a respectable white shirt, brown waistcoat, black cravat with a matching durable coat. The portmanteau contained other outfits, including formal concert attire. Lastly, he needed to organize his music folder. Within the last week, he had started various compositions. There would be plenty of time in the carriage to finish them. Carolina entered the room. She gasped at seeing her eldest son mature before her eyes. She walked up to him and kissed his forehead. "My little boy is so grown up." "I will miss you, Mama." Matteo hugged Carolina tightly. "I will write." Their moment was interrupted when the carriage rustled outside. Matteo grabbed his portmanteau and headed downstairs. His siblings overcrowded him with hugs. Little Luigi grabbed his leg and refused to let go. "Luigi, I love you, but let me go," Matteo puffed. Before making it to the door, Violante entered with a mess of books. She gave a sigh of relief. "I came just in time. Matteo, here are the books of study. I want you to go over. When you return, we will review everything." Matteo tried to balance everything in his arms as Violante settled the stash of books on top of the portmanteau. Carolina caught up and helped carry the luggage to the carriage. Once everything was packed, father and son were ready to set off. "Adieu, my child. I love you, my husband," Carolina called out. Marco and Luigi cried, already missing them. Violante waved, but rather seemed unhappy about this little journey. She would rather have Matteo put his heart into his studies. Once the coach trotted out of Florence, Matteo watched the Tuscan countryside pass by. The beautiful sky and fresh air filled his nose. It was a glorious day for travel. Matteo put Violante's books aside to instead work on his compositions. He was nearly finished with the Santines and had a good start on the Trio Rondo pour guitar au large. Days passed on the road, and they arrived at the first major city in their plans, Napolis. Salvatore had many connections from the workshop he once owned. It didn't take him long to find salon hosts in search of musicians. Matteo felt quite nervous at first, but once he played, he became a favorite among audiences. The music of the guitar was only beginning to become popular in upper society, so Matteo's skill became quite the gossip. Weeks passed, as Salvatore took Matteo through Italy, visiting cities along the way before coming to the next country, Austria. Matteo was overly excited, especially to visit Vienna. Many popular guitarists resided there. The mountains, green grasses, and blue skies of the land appeared as a clear painting. Wildflowers added color and texture. Upon arriving in Vienna, Matteo gave gasps of awe at the structures. The beautiful opera house shone pearly white and gold. Carriages strolled down the cobblestone with much refinement. Salvatore chose a reputable place of stay near the city center. The two got much-needed rest, but it didn't last long. Salvatore headed out with the letters of introduction. He obtained them in Italy and was going to use them to find Matteo places to perform. As Salvatore was busy, Matteo was quick to venture off and find concert tickets. Each performance widened his perspective of music. One concert house happened to be performing Giuliani's Guitar Concerto. Though he spent all day listening to music, Matteo had to attend this one. Salvatore caught up with his son in the nick of time. "We should return to the hotel. You must practice." "Papa, please, can we go to this concert?" "You have been to concerts all day." "But this one is a guitar concerto," Matteo begged him. His words caught Salvatore's attention. "All right, we shall go." Matteo jumped in excitement. He had not heard of a guitarist featured in an orchestra before, let alone in a large concert hall. When he and Salvatore took their seats, Matteo skimmed the program and noticed that Giuliani was the soloist. It made Matteo gasp at Salvatore. "Giuliani is playing. How exciting. I heard he is extremely virtuous. I didn't know he still resided here. What a treat." Salvatore smiled. Matteo looked ahead, ready to listen intently. When the musicians took to the stage, Mario Giuliani came with his guitar. He walked to his chair with much elegance. Matteo still thought it strange to see a guitarist with an orchestra. He wondered how on earth the sound would come through. When it was time, everyone was set to play, so the conductor counted the musicians into the introduction. A portion of the cheery piece was inspired by a section of Mozart's opera, Die Zauberflöte. Matteo recognized the tune from Papageno's character. The orchestra then paused in a rest. It was then the guitar entered with a sweet, harp-like tone. Matteo's ears were soothed at such sound. The orchestration was so carefully crafted around the guitar in such a way that it balanced the music perfectly. Once the last notes were savored, everyone gave their applause. They then exited the auditorium to flood the lobby. Among the crowd, a man called out, "Salvatore." Salvatore looked towards the man dressed in fine attire. "Do I know you?" "I believe not. I am Herr Philip Schindlocher, a cellist. A friend from Napoli's informed me that you were to be here. He wrote that you build fine guitars. I've heard musicians play them. I'm also told that your son is an accomplished guitarist." "See, he has played at many salons in Italy," Salvatore informed. Philip handed Salvatore a card. "Tomorrow night, a group of musicians are hosting one at a manor, including myself. I'd like to hear Matteo play." "Excellent." Salvatore graciously took the invitation. Matteo glanced at it in eagerness. With that, Philip left. Salvatore and Matteo did the same, returning to their place of stay for the night. The next evening, Salvatore gave a coachman the address for the manor house. Meanwhile, Matteo loaded his guitar in the trunk. After getting set, the carriage took them to the very outskirts of Vienna, where a large estate sat. Upon seeing it, Salvatore told Matteo, "Surely this salon is for an audience of nobility." Other carriages were arriving. A good-sized party was forming. Salvatore and Matteo entered the home to be welcomed with champagne. Delicious meat and cheese were served along. A pianist was currently providing music. Everyone looked at Matteo curiously, having not seen him before. He heard a man whisper to another, "That boy must play good if Herr Schindlocher invited him. Do you know him?" "Nein," the other responded. "He appears to be Italian." Matteo then spotted Philip sitting at a table next to a young man. As he walked closer, he noticed the boy near his age appeared upset. His arm was in a sling under his coat. Philip assured him, "I am hopeful that the cello will suit you if you cannot return to playing violin." "Nein, I must be able to play violin again after I heal," the boy whispered back in sadness. Matteo sat at the table quietly. Philip then told the somber one, "Joseph, this is Matteo. He is about a year younger than you. He plays guitar." "Hello." The young man wiped away tears and perked up at seeing a potential friend. He introduced himself. "My name is Joseph Merck. I was a violinist, but a vicious dog attacked me and bit my arm so hard that the doctors say it may never fully heal correctly." "How dreadful!" Matteo gasped. Philip then stood as the pianist finished up in playing. He hurried forward and announced after the applause, "I would like everyone to please enjoy a newcomer. He is a young guitarist, Matteo Carcassi." He gestured to Matteo to come forward. Matteo set up his guitar. All eyes were on him. He was nervous at this crowd. With a moment of calm, he began playing. To his relief, the eyes lit up in awe. Salvatore stood proud as he listened. Someone tapped on his shoulder. Salvatore turned to see a well-dressed man, his hair and eyes dark as night, in which Salvatore recognized. Who is this young man? His sound is superb. His accent was Italian. Ah, Signor Giuliani, it is my son Matteo. Come hither. Mauro guided Salvatore towards the back of the room, where conversation could be held. He explained, Your son is probably the best young guitarist I have heard. I would be pleased to ask him for a favor. Of course, I'm sure he would be willing. What are you asking? I have a few more performances of my concerto within the month, and I'd like him to be the soloist in one of them. It would be nice to hear my work away from the guitar for once, and by a decent musician, Giuliani implied. Salvatore's heart flew. When Matteo finished after a good hour, he thanked everyone and packed up. When he headed back to sit by Salvatore, he noticed the surprised guest beside him. Matteo instantly jumped. Mauro, what an unexpected person to see. I saw your concert last night. It was the greatest guitar work I've ever heard. Grazie, Mauro smiled. You are a very well-set guitarist yourself. I've spoken to your father. I have made a proposal that you perform my concerto. Oh, that would be an honor, but I'm afraid that I'm not capable of such a task. A concerto for guitar is still a new idea to me, Matteo confessed. Mauro assured, I can help you learn the work before the month's end. Your skill is enough, I assure. I am willing, grazie, Matteo smiled. The three then enjoyed the rest of the gathering with much food and wine. Mauro, of course, played his guitar as the crowd demanded it. Matteo felt that it was the best evening of his life. Throughout that month, Matteo and Mauro got together to work out the concerto. Matteo at first struggled at such complex music, but after a few weeks and much help, he became more comfortable. It expanded his skill in many aspects. Mauro seemed quite happy in teaching and seeing the young one progress. Salvatore, for the most part, spent his time enjoying the city, taking in all it had to offer in scenery. He let Matteo do his own thing, and rather wanted to be surprised at the concert. In the next week before the concert, orchestra rehearsals were organized. The first one was rough, which gave Matteo much worry. The other musicians appeared frustrated. Mauro inside had doubts, but didn't show it. He only kept encouraging everyone until things smoothed out with each day. After much hard work, Mauro deemed Matteo ready. The bill for that performance was switched to Matteo's name as soloist, so word could be spread. Those who had heard Matteo at the manor gave strong influence. On the night of, all of Vienna seemed to flood into the concert hall. Matteo glanced from the side of the stage to see so many faces. He turned to Mauro in a sweat. I don't know if I can do this. Matteo, you played it yesterday with the orchestra. You can. But there are so many people. Matteo became frightened. Mauro quickly pulled Matteo away to a room behind the stage. It contained a small kitchen area. Matteo questioned as Mauro kindled a fire in the stove. What are you doing? You need tea. He set a tea kettle of water on the stovetop. He then grabbed his bag where he had a container of calming chamomile blossoms. They gave a sweet scent as they simmered in the hot water. Once Matteo drank up, his nerves were settled. It was just in time as the conductor called them to go on. Mauro followed close behind Matteo. He had decided to join the orchestra in the cello section, as he was an accomplished cellist. Once everyone was set, the conductor counted into the long opening of the orchestra. Matteo sat patiently and watched the faces of the crowd. They looked at the young 14-year-old with interest. When the time came, Matteo played the first notes. His nerves were sorted, and it was the smoothest he had ever played. In the next interlude of the orchestra, Matteo glanced at Mauro, who was bowing at his cello. He looked up a moment and smiled back. He loved Matteo's rendition of the concerto. It made Matteo come back in with even more confidence. The rest of the concerto was a success, and Matteo was able to breathe better after the last pluck of the chord. He stood and bowed, with the orchestra following. The auditorium cheered, and flowers were thrown. Matteo grabbed a rose, with much happiness. He then noticed Salvatore with the widest smile he had ever seen.